You mentioned in the first segment of the show that the budget this year looks a lot like the budget last year. And I recall one of the criticisms last year, including a criticism from me, was that they were engaging a little bit of double counting with regard to the Medicare program. The administration has proposed increasing the payroll tax and what's called the net investment income tax on individuals making over 400,000, and they're going to credit the increased revenue to the Medicare trust fund. But they're also proposing to credit the existing revenue, the money that we would have already collected under current law. They're going to credit that to the trust fund. And then we were talking about the drug price negotiation, and in theory, that will save money in the future. But they're going to credit that money to the trust fund, which, of course, this is the Medicare Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, which really has very little to do with the prescription drug benefit. But anyway, the bottom line, I think the actuaries at the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services said that the president's proposal would result in a transfer of about $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years to the Medicare Trust Fund, and therefore extending the solvency presumably indefinitely. But when you go through the proposals, that $1.5 trillion doesn't really represent new money that's available to pay for Medicare benefits. It's simply, either future savings in drug costs, or it's money that we would have collected under current law. What are your thoughts about, is that a real way to shore up the Medicare system?
Well, I'll start by saying that whatever new money we're raising by increasing the tax or applying the specific Medicare tax to new types of income, and you're generating new money and dedicating that to the trust fund, that seems fine to me, because that's what we want. We want new revenue to come in, and we want it dedicated to the trust fund to extend solvency. Where it gets trickier is when you're taking a current revenue source or prescription drug savings from outside of Medicare hospital insurance, and then dedicating that to the hospital insurance trust fund. That is more of kind of gamesmanship in a way, really an accounting trick more than gamesmanship, I guess. Again, if the new prescription drug savings is because of new policies, because you're extending negotiation or you're making those negotiations tougher, that's not what they're suggesting, but that would be one way to bring in more savings into the system, and then dedicating that to the trust fund, it makes sense. But taking an existing revenue stream and just saying that is now going to flow into the trust fund is a gimmick, because we're not actually increasing the resources of the federal government. We're just moving it from one arm of the federal government to the other. I would also say, though, that Medicare is increasingly, I think, anachronistic in having this division between hospital insurance and outpatient spending in Medicare Part B. We really think that these divisions aren't very helpful. Medicare Part A is actually shrinking relative to Medicare Part B. So there are a lot of reasons to kind of change the way we think about that division, but that, I think, is a much bigger reform than a president's budget would ever be able to handle. And certainly we could have a whole nother show on how to do that. So in a way, like, any policies that is increasing revenue and cutting spending is good. And then there's kind of a separate issue of whether we're doing some accounting gimmicks also to make the trust fund last indefinitely versus 20 years versus 15 years.
Yeah,
we know we need to extend it.